What's up, lemon heads? Welcome to another episode of From the Yellow Chair, the podcast that talks all about marketing for the home service industry. I am Crystal, and today we have a really special guest I'm excited for you to meet. Decades of HVAC experience, and he just told me he spends the majority of his day in front of contractors, so no better place for him to be. I can't wait for us to discuss about digital services and how things are reshaping the HVAC sales and in the whole industry together. So, let's sip some lemonade. Well, Brian, I am so excited to have you on the podcast today.
Thanks, Crystal. Super excited to be here.
Well, we're recording on a Friday, so we're all pumped because you know what? It's Friday morning and we know we just got to get through the rest of this day. But I am really excited for you guys to get to hear today, listeners, from Brian Feenie. He is going to talk a little bit about the digital sales and things like that. We're just gonna jump into some stuff, right? So, Brian, I want to know, why should my listeners care about anything you have to say?
Wow, way to lay it out there,
No
Crystal.
problem.
Right now there's a ton of activity going on in digital services and technology, and it gets very confusing, right? And so, really, what I'm there to do is help folks get through some of that noise and start to really dig into, if it's a CRM system, if it's a you know digital services company, if it's utilizing technology and how you run your business in the field, sales tools, things like that. Like, there's so many different choices. AI's all over the place. And, it's really trying to tie everything together, because everyone's in a different place with their digital journey. When we look at this as an overarching theme of digital transformation, a lot of companies don't know where to start, and sometimes it could be not the best idea to follow what everyone else is doing, because that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing for your business,
Oh,
for your
boy.
and
Yes.
for the technicians. And where I tend to step in is I help with the implementation and getting it done, and holding the technicians and owners accountable for the things that they want to get accomplished. And so I do touch a lot of different parts of the industry as far as types of digital services, whether it's price quoting tools or hands-on tools that technicians are using in the field. But a lot of these become part of the business model. So when we look at a business model, there's a term that we use on our side of the fence called full stack HVAC or full stack HVAC,
Mhm.
which is really all of these different technologies on how you build your tech stack. So we now have to think about HVAC companies building tech stacks, which seems very
Crazy.
uncommon, right? And so, you know, to me, that's my journey. That's the mountain I'm climbing right now, is to help move the industry forward and do that with some strategic partners that I work with, but also, just giving back to the community of home services and providing insight and advice where I can, to be able to just cut through the noise, because technology has been the slow, steady climb for a lot of years. I've been in the industry 30 years, and it seems like over the last 5 to 10, it's just all hit at once. And that's really where now everyone's like, "Oh, I don't know what to do." So I feel that I can bring value there.
Awesome, awesome. Well, so tech stack is a very popular statement lately that I've been using with contractors as well. So, used to, so I grew up in the industry, right? Like, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s working in a home service company that was family owned and operated in a small town, like so many other people that are probably listening today. And you know what you did? You answered the phone, you wrote notes, you had handwritten things, you talked over radios, and it's like all of a sudden I feel like we just really hit the gas, and we've gone from like paper and radio to now, like, you literally have virtual ride along software,
Yeah.
things that we never could have even fathomed and thought about 30, 40 years ago, 20 years ago, even. Heck, really, honestly, 5 years ago, things were not where they are now. And like, things are just moving so forward so rapidly. And, I look at contractors sometimes and they're like, honestly, they've got a CRM over here with multiple built in cool capabilities. And then they've got third party that say, oh my gosh, well, we are integrated. We're fully integrated with said, CRM. And you're just like, okay, so, and literally contractors will call Lemon Seed and they'll say, I don't even know. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. I feel like I should be doing more technologically advanced things, but here I am.
Yeah.
And really they just want to revert back to the good old days. I sound like I'm old here, but they just want to revert back when things were a lot more simple. I mean, now you've got to even like, a lot of contractors that are listening have technicians on their teams that probably are not tech savvy. I mean, I'm 43 and I did not grow up on social media. I did not grow up with a cell phone until I was much, much older. Um, Very much. I mean, I was on the day when you were cool and you got a pager, you
Oh, I
know.
had one. I had one.
Yeah, so what I'm saying here is I know that there's a lot of listeners that are listening right now that are really in this mode of like, I really want to understand what my tech stack should be. And some of my contractors have tech stack that they don't even use. Like I'm like, "Oh, you have, Marketing Pro or you have, Real of Voice or you have Chirp or you all," and I'm like, "You're not using any of it." And it's because it's so sheer they're sheerly just overwhelmed with the amount of tech that's in their life.
Yep, 100%. And that, I see that all the time. And then there's different versions of a similar type of platform. And then it's like, well, which one do I pick? And it's, they're at the end of the day, what we really need to be considering and helping contractors and owners and GMs, kind of filter through all this is to decide really how does this serve the customer, the consumer,
Oh,
right?
good good
Like
thought.
of the things we're doing or the types of technology that we're considering, what is the end result on how we serve the customer? Because
Mhm.
if that is clunky, then that then we get frustrated with it, and then we lose the alignment through the organization of why are we even doing this. So if the technician gets to the house and the homeowner is upset because the technology was weird or didn't work right, well, now the technician's going to lose confidence in what the company's doing. But then the owner thought, oh wow, this is great. I'm the visionary. I'm going to chart the course for the company. We're going to do all this fancy stuff, but not realizing the impact that it might have on key stakeholders in the business. And then the ultimate key stakeholder is the customer, the one with the money, right?
Yeah. Oh,
They're
yeah.
they're the one paying the company. So I always challenge owners and managers to think about, first of all, why do you want to do it? Like what's the goal? Is it cost savings due to efficiency? Is it, utilizing a technology to reduce your callbacks in your business? That's a pretty common sense thing. But how do we translate that to customer value, consumer value? Because if we can do that, then we've checked off all the key boxes. If we can get alignment with technicians, internal employees, and the consumer wins, well, then to me, that's a method to selecting proper tech stack
Yeah,
is,
lemon seed, one of my biggest things is always the customer experience because we're a branding agency. Lemon seed and further than just making good logos and fan wraps, right? So we're a branding agency. So the importance of their customers experience with your company far outweighs some of the just being able to say that you did it, like being in the cool kids club. I mean, literally, I had a contractor one time that said, "Yeah, well, everybody in my mixed group signed up for this, and I did too, so that I could say I did it, but I've not one time watched the first onboarding video." I'm like, "You're just is this the new version of like smoking cigarettes?" Like, I'm
yeah,
like, "It's so detrimental to your financial health." But here you are, like smoking cigarettes, and you're not even, sir. You're like, "Why have you not launched this?" And he's like, "I'm not even sure what they do." And I'm like, man, we have like and I say we because I mean the consultants, the marketers, the public speakers, like we come in like bulldogs, like y'all should be doing this. You're losing dollars every day that you're not doing this. And these poor contractors are like, oh my gosh, I should go do it. So they jump in with both feet and then they just drown in it. And I'm like, man, so really understanding, I love that point. Like I think that's a phenomenal point is why don't you just step back and go, how is this going to help my customer journey? Now, sometimes it's the customer journey. You might be impacting an efficiency side of your office that makes your team more available to answer the phone, or so there's more than just the customer actually interacting with the technology. But does it make your staff more efficient? Does it make your staff more available? Does it make them more educated? Do you have more insight? Does it drive down costs? I mean, what does it do that impacts the customer journey? And so I really love that statement, because my brand heart here really wants people to think, another little story that I tell sometimes, and this is a little off subject, but you'll get my connection here. One time I had this super great client, loved him in, rural areas of Arkansas. And we were having a good conversation, and I was like, man, you're getting leads. And he's like, Crystal, I don't see the leads. And I'm like, man, okay. So, Lemon Seed, my job is to coach through where the problems are on the marketing. So I'm like, there's something going on. So I go listen to his phone calls, and he literally had a CSR referring out and saying that they were booked, and referring to his competitor and saying, we're booked, but if you want to go ahead and call so and so, we've worked out a deal with them and they take our overflow calls. And I remember being literally, I was physically sick, but I was heartbroken for that contractor, because I thought, because he had no systems of checks and balances in place, and he had not ever thought about actually monitoring things in general. So my point here is, you know, I cannot speak today. Technology is a resource that we should embrace, but also things that we can keep up with. We need to pace it out correctly, right? In our job, so that we can have a good customer overall experience, but also make sure that we're measuring and monitoring what we're expecting, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So
I mean, like, even to that point, like years ago, I ran a home service company, and I was investing in pay per click and SEM and SEO type activities, and I think the company I partnered with wasn't prepared for me because I was holding them accountable for performance, and
yeah.
a lot of times you just you plug the money in, 10,000 a month, and you just expect magic to happen. And if you're not holding your marketing company accountable for doing, in that case, those particular activities, like, where are my leads coming from? What
Mhm.
keywords are we using? How expensive are the keywords? Some of those things, activities back then, um, that I knew enough about, but for some that might not know, you should be holding people accountable for the services you're investing in. And whether it's marketing services, whether it's any technology based service that you're, paying either a subscription to, are you getting your money's worth? And are you fully doing your part? I spent some, time on the SaaS side for a certain FSM, field service management company. And what we would typically see is a lot of the, companies that were investing in the software weren't putting the work in to get the full potential out of it. So they would get frustrated. And I'm sure you've seen this over and over again, Crystal, where it's like, oh, I'm using XYZ CRM. And man, I don't think I'm getting my money's worth. It's like, well, did you do all the onboarding? Did you activate all the native
Attend your
things?
meetings.
Right? Yeah. Did you attend your meetings? You've got biweekly or weekly or monthly check-ins. Are you canceling those, or are you actually going to those? Because there's that certain accountability that now comes back to the user to say, well, the reason you're failing with it is because you're not putting in the work. It's not a magic wand. And I think that's an important topic to, I guess, just discuss is, technology isn't a magic wand. Now,
No,
it could be sold as a magic wand by those providers, but truly, at the end of the day, it becomes there's some heavy lifting or moderate lifting that the contractor or home service company still needs to do. And sometimes you have to dedicate that champion in the company to be the one to own it, right? And
absolutely, absolutely. Utilizing people to owns areas where you may not be the strongest. Now, some contractors, they are the visionary and the technology I'm telling you, that's just gonna be my word today. I'm not even gonna edit it
We
out.
say tech. We'll say tech.
Tech. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. That's a good point. My East Texas is showing today. But the tech side of things, right? Like some of you may be the tech savvy person. I, on the other hand, have to rely on Emily when my mouse won't work, my partner at Lemon Seed. So I'm like, Emily, something's wrong. So I would obviously not need to be the one that implements a new software. I can play parts in it, I can consult in it, I can speak to it. But sometimes you just have to step back and be like, I'm not the person for this, you know? Well, leaning into that a little bit, Brian, like what do you think some of the biggest mistakes you see contractors making? And I know that's probably one of them is like just not doing the onboarding correctly, not investing the real time that it takes to onboard.
I think that, but I'll even back up one step before that is selecting a software that or a technology that they did it because their friends are doing it or that mixed group is doing it.
Yeah.
I had a customer, an old customer call me that I've known for 20 years. A couple years ago, one summer, in the summer of all times, on a Saturday, messaged me through Facebook and says, "Hey, can you call me?" And I'm like, "I haven't heard from this guy in years." And he's running a 20 plus $1 million company, and he's like, "I'm ready to do XYZ software." It was this CRM, and I was like, "Okay, well, why that one?" Well, that's what everybody's using. I was like, but that doesn't mean that's the right one for you. I mean, you should look at various versions of the
Right.
CRM. Make sure it's right for you. And he's like, oh, I'm gonna hire a bunch of IT people. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I said, one thing I can tell you is all the systems that you built on your own over the last 40, 50 years have to all change because all these CRMs will then dictate how you do workflows and how you run your business. And that might not be the way you're used to doing things. So you need to have someone in the company that understands how you do business now, but also understands the technology enough to bridge the gap between, all right, we used to do this task this way, now we have to do it this way. How are we gonna work this out? But the whole point of these groups of people are going, brand X. Well, if they're doing it and they're successful, then I want to be like them. So I'm just going to use the same technology. And to me, that's a difficult thing because you're not really making the decision for the right reason.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, I'm hoping these software companies dictate, okay, well, this is really the blueprint. And I think that's really where we need to raise the game with a lot of the tech that's out there is during onboarding and implementation. We really need to be very prescriptive on what the blueprint should look like in the business for it to be successful. Because when you
Yeah.
get ICP or ideal customer profile and you have defined success, what a successful customer looks like as a tech company, well, we need to be able to assert ourselves to say, look, in order for this to be successful, you need to put these things in place very early, not after they've already been frustrated, but very much in the beginning to roll out. And sometimes, as eager as we are to sell customers into technology, the problem is sometimes we're more focused on the sale and less focused on the success of the customer. And to me, that's a fine line that I see happening out there. That I'd rather talk a customer out of it,
Mm.
knowing that they have potential for failure, versus, oh yeah, it's going to be fine. Just do the steps. Well, if they don't have the infrastructure internally or the culture to adopt change, they're going to crash and burn, be
Oh,
very frustrated. And I was talking to someone this earlier this week. They've been through 7 different CRM systems in the last 9 years.
yeah. No.
It's very frustrating, and like I hate to see that happen, but it's very common.
Well, you know what I hate to say, and I know this is so terrible, so I hope everybody knows, like, know my heart here. Sometimes you have to step back and have a little self-awareness and go, is the problem really that there's 7 bad companies? Or is the problem that I may not be where I need to be, you know? Because we deal with the same thing. So let me see, I'm tenderhearted, so I want to help every contractor. And some of them, they come on, they interview with us, we talk through things, we send them a proposal, and within 2 days they sign it and we're moving on. Then I have people that I'm still talking to 6, 8, 10 months later because they cannot make a decision. They are paralyzed in the decision world, and they're paralyzed with the fear and the thoughts and the outliers. And I'm like, man, it just hinders you so much. I'm not saying don't be methodical, and like think through things. But what I am saying is you can literally, procrastination is another form, or perfection is another form of procrastination.
No
So,
doubt.
I say that quite often because you're all like, well, something's not right with the CRM. Let me change. Let me go. I'm just going to change company. Same thing with digital companies. I tell every single client, probably the majority of times your digital company is decent. Now, some of them, I immediately am like, but it's not that they're bad business owners, that the owners of those digital companies are wrong. It's just I know it's not the right fit for the customers that I'm using or that I work with. And so their structure is not always fit for every contractor. And so, it's more about finding the right fit for yourself and not being peer pressured into going with one direction or the other. So that's a definite issue. So um another thing is like, where do you see the most impact for contractors of utilizing these digital services that you deploy? So is it on the sales side, is it on the service side, is it on the CSR side? Where do you see that?
A lot of what I focus on is on the technician side,
Oh, perfect,
technician
perfect.
efficiency, and a lot of what I talk about publicly and in my trainings and things that I do is it comes back to callbacks. Callbacks are a silent killer in a home service company, and if we can utilize technology to eliminate or mitigate callbacks, whether it's through digital tools, software, things like that, we're making a tremendous impact on a business, but also the customer experience too, because customers don't like when a technician has to come back to their home 2 or 3 different times to fix a problem, right? And bringing awareness of callbacks as an example, on average, a callback impacts a business around between 500 to $1,500 every event, right? So if that's happening more than once a day, and you add that up over the course of a month and a year, it's a I have one client that I'm working with that their callbacks equate to $250,000 a year.
Oh gosh.
And if we were to implement some best practices and some technology, we could save that company literally $250,000. And the customer experience would be elevated. And there's a sales and marketing aspect to it because now we can prove we do the best work in the market, be very bullish on our marketing campaigns to say, we can prove all the work that we do. We can, utilize the technology, third party verification to do it. So now it creates this experience where we're checking off all the boxes like we were just talking about. It's good for the company. It's good for the CSRs because CSRs don't love getting a call from an upset customer. Technicians don't like getting yelled at in the home because they're supposed to be the hero of the day, right? And we empower them to be able to do the work that at the highest level. And so, like, to me, that that implementation of foundational things is really where I would prefer companies really focus their time and attention to a tech stack, for an example. So Crystal, I'd like to kind of bring that full circle. Are there things I could be looking at that are foundational to the business to help scale that company too? If a company is looking to grow, it's kind of like that three-legged stool. If I take a leg out, I fall over, right? So if I don't build that strong foundation or core, um, those are some challenges to the market that I would say is, do you have things in place that are becoming foundational pieces of how you run your business? Because there's great technology out there that allows you to do it.
Yeah, yeah. again, it all comes back to utilizing your resources.
Yes.
Utilizing what's there, and also, making sure that you are working within, looking inside of your team, and looking at the technicians. I get in trouble for this, but there's a lot of truth to this. Just because you're the best shortstop on the team doesn't mean you need to be the coach.
Yeah.
So sometimes people just are naturally good, but it doesn't mean they need to be promoted to your service manager or anything like that. Like, well, this guy runs an iPad well, so he's now over IT. Absolutely not. So I love what we're saying here, because again, I'm going to go back to this at the very beginning. What you're saying here is, when we adopt, when we choose to jump into these different um cool, unique things, we have to go in with both feet, and with the understanding that we have to dedicate time and resources to making them work. And it's the same thing with lemon seed. It's the same thing. Like, we have the clients that are the most successful clients are our most engaged clients. There is very few things that you can put on autopilot in your business, and that's why being an entrepreneur is hard, because you've got to carry a lot of hats for a while, until you can get, you can get people on your team. But tech is definitely not the way, is not one of those things like, oh yeah, I joined it because my friend said joined it. That's cool for you to explore it because someone else is being successful in it, but are you willing to sit on onboarding calls that are terrible to go through? Are you willing to go through the hiccups that are going to come when you launch new softwares? Are you willing to adapt and hold your team accountable for the utilization of those things? And, as far as marketing goes here, this is all coming back to, again, being able to ask a higher ticket, have higher end branding, because the experience with your company is better, it's more thorough, it is top notch, it appears innovative, it appears new, and people naturally are gravitating to that right now, because it's a really good mix of, you're not overly complicated, but you're also not antiquated, right? Back in the day. So I love that. I love that thought. Those I love the concept here of, this is just good business management, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
hey, what advancements do you think might be coming in the future? Like, if we think it's bad now, like, do you have any thoughts on what's probably coming, or what do you think we should be looking forward to?
I think where a lot of, especially on the HVAC side of the industry right now, a lot of focus needs to be paid attention to the workforce development. I,
Mm.
I think there's advancements there now. There's going to be continued advancements in tech to help companies do more with less, and address the skilled labor gap that we have. I mean, we continually have technicians leaving the industry and less coming in. So it's compounding a problem of being able to get, you know, skilled technicians to do the work that the industry demands. And I feel that there's technology right now that companies could be embracing to help overcome the traditional hiring methods that we use. Like when I would hire a technician, I was looking at a resume, and I was looking for certain things: 10 years experience, 20 years experience, the golden goose. Could I find, that unicorn technician that I could hire that's usually going to cost me more, but they're going to magically do the job without any guidance, right? And I think that's what general managers and owners and managers tend to look for. It's like, oh, they look great on paper, but they have the worst attitude after we hired them, and they treat the customers poorly, and they actually aren't as good as they said they were. That's a common thing. We hire on paper sometimes, and I'm always talking about, when I'm coaching clients or advising, is to say, you should be looking at attitude over aptitude,
Oh, 100%.
because we're seeing contractors in the market now, especially with one of the companies I work with, that they're hiring technicians from the local cable company or Xerox because they're personal people. They can talk to the customer well. They have the right attitude. With technology now, we can provide them a process and tools and technology to be able to do the job and learn a lot faster. So now I've got the right mindset employee, and I can teach them the aptitude to do the work. So now I'm solving my own labor problem for the industry because I don't have to fish in a pond that's very limited of skill set. I can go to a broader base, and I'll sometimes joke and say, "Oh, if I could hire someone from Chick-fil-A that knows how to say please and thank you, and give them a set of tools and a process, they could be an HVAC tech within, a year
Yeah.
doing maintenance." I mean, to me, that's amazing because that's not existed before. Because we'd have to take a you know a person, man or woman through the process of technical school and trade school and learn all this stuff, and it's 4 years before they could ever get out into the field.
Oh, yeah.
So dealing with the workforce side of this, I think, is low hanging fruit. The industry is prime. Now in the future, it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
We're and there's some scary things out there with AI, right? There's so much AI, no one knows what to do with it, I think.
Yeah.
And will that do certain things? Probably. But again, I'm more taking a slower look at that from my view. There's a lot of applied things that can be done now. And I think so what the future holds is we got to embrace what's here now
Oh, yeah.
because there's a lot of great opportunities to embrace technology to build that tech stack, even if it's just a couple things. It doesn't have to be like tech stack sounds scary. It sounds big. You could just implement one technology advancement in your business that's meaningful. That's beginning your tech stack. And then you build and layer on the other pieces that help complement. And so the future's here now, and that's really where I want to see folks keeping an open mind and looking wider and paying attention to, well, what are we doing for technician competency? What are we doing to provide transparency to the consumer? What are we doing to make sure that that our customer service reps are happy? What are we doing to convey the message of all the value we bring in the public eye to our customers? Like our branding, like what do we stand for? Like, are we taking credit for the things that we already do? Because that's a difficult thing that a lot of contractors run into is they do all this great stuff, but they don't take credit for it. And as a branding professional and in marketing, that's usually what we want to dig into. Well, what do you do? Well, oh, we do this special thing for customers.
Yeah.
Well, do you let anyone know? Like, do you, do you take credit for it? Because
Yeah. Are you the only one that knows?
exactly. So yeah, so back to kind of close the loop on that. It's really about the future is here now, and so that's really where like finding that tour guide, people like yourself, people like me, and others that are there to kind of help say, well, here's where some things I know you could do, but the I also know a lot of people in this industry that do other great things, and it's to help guide people to explore. I think that's really the call to action today is to explore what's out there. Take a look. It is scary a lot of times for folks that are, I hear it all the time. I'm not tech savvy. I'm like, well, do you have a cell phone? Because like this is a computer in your pocket. If you're using this, you're halfway there, right?
I mean, and again, I go back to that same thing. Like when we get ready right now, like, people are really impressed with getting technicians, hiring for aptitude over or hiring for attitude over aptitude, because now there's so many resources that are at their fingertips to be able to do things. But at the same time, we as companies, we have to have the leads for those people and the culture for those people. And so, I just encourage people today to really take a look at what's coming, get prepared, be an early adopter of things, but dedicate yourself to it. And also try not, you can't early adopt every aspect of your business, I don't think. Because I don't think you can really devote the time you need to be launching a virtual a CSR, a virtual ride along, virtual this, booking online, all these things. I would encourage you to get things set in place very intentionally and very consistently, though. So, well, Brian, what a fantastic conversation all around this. You know me, I am a sucker for a good customer journey conversation. And so I think we covered that the future is bright. We need to be excited and we need to embrace what's coming. But Brian, if people really liked what they hear about it, what you were saying, and they were kind of intrigued, how can someone reach out to you?
Best way, I'm on LinkedIn. That's always I'm very active on there. Uh, my website is shiftlogicsales.com. So just as it sounds, shift SHIFTLOGIC sales.com. But you can always find me on LinkedIn. Connect with me there. I'm always putting out some content or some thought leadership to just help stimulate some thinking out there and kind of looking outside the box. So I'm happy to connect there always. Um, but
Okay.
obviously my website has a form there too. If anyone wants to reach out, I'm happy to talk to anybody. Just to
Sounds
shoot the breeze, explore, get to know each other.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not scary.
Well, no, very not scary. It was a great conversation. So, listen, listeners, if you are in the HVAC industry or anything relatively close, probably, let's take a closer look at how digital service really can transform your approach to like customer satisfaction, the quality of service that you're providing, and just that overall customer journey. And remember, if you're looking for some support, Shift Logic, Brian here, here to help you lead the way. So, Brian, any last words? Any last thoughts?
Go in eyes wide open. Be
Yeah,
curious. Be curious. That's what I'm going to leave you with. Be curious of what's out there. It's an exciting time, and I'm there to help. If I can be a resource, I'm happy to give back to the community and share any knowledge I have from doing this a long time. So
I love it.
happy to
Well,
help.
I love it. Thank you so much, Brian. And listeners, thank you for listening to another episode of From the Yellow Chair. Hey, write me a review, refer this podcast. I would love to hear more from my listeners about what you want to hear. And most importantly, thanks for sipping some lemonade with us. We'll see you next time.